What if the biggest obstacle to the life you want isn't your circumstances, but the way you've been conditioned to think? If you've been working hard yet still feel stuck, frustrated, or unable to reach your full potential, you're not alone. The good news is that lasting change begins in your mind, and once you understand how to guide it, everything else can begin to shift. In this video, you'll discover practical principles inspired by Bob Proctor on meditation, visualization, reading, and the incredible power of your subconscious mind. You'll learn how your daily thoughts shape your self-image, why the ideas you repeatedly feed your mind matter, and how small mental habits can lead to extraordinary results over time. If you're ready to think differently and create a better future, make sure you subscribe and join us on this journey. By the end of this video, you'll see yourself and your potential in a completely new way. Outline 1. Begin meditating daily to quiet your conscious mind. Most people believe that success begins with action. They think they need a better job, more money, better connections, or more opportunities before life can change. But there is something even more important that comes before every action you ever take. It is the condition of your mind. If your mind is constantly busy, filled with worry, doubt, comparison, and fear, then every decision you make will reflect that inner condition. This is why beginning each day with meditation can become one of the most valuable habits you ever develop. It is not about escaping the world. It is about preparing yourself to meet the world with clarity instead of confusion. Think about how most people start their mornings. The alarm rings, they reach for their phone, check messages, scroll through news, and immediately allow outside information to shape their mood. Before they have even taken a full breath, their attention belongs to everyone else. Their mind becomes crowded with problems, opinions, deadlines, and distractions. Then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed throughout the day. Meditation changes this pattern because it gives you a chance to choose your mental direction before the world chooses it for you. When you sit quietly, even for a few minutes, something remarkable begins to happen. You notice how active your thoughts really are. You become aware of conversations that have been repeating in your mind for years. Some thoughts encourage you, but many quietly hold you back. They tell you that you are not ready, not capable, not smart enough, or not deserving. Most people never question these thoughts because they have heard them for so long that they mistake them for facts. Meditation creates enough space for you to recognize that a thought is simply a thought. It does not become reality unless you continue believing it. This awareness is powerful because every belief you hold today once began as a repeated thought. The subconscious mind learns through repetition. It does not carefully evaluate every idea you entertain. Instead, it accepts what you repeatedly think, feel, and imagine. If day after day you focus on failure, disappointment, or limitation, those patterns slowly become familiar. Eventually, they shape your expectations, your confidence, and your behavior without you even realizing it. Consider someone who constantly tells themselves they are unlucky. At first, it may seem like a harmless comment. They laugh about it with friends and repeat it whenever something goes wrong. Over time, however, that simple statement becomes part of their identity. They begin expecting setbacks before they even try. When opportunities appear, hesitation replaces confidence because their subconscious has accepted the idea that success belongs to someone else. They are no longer responding to reality. They are responding to a belief they strengthen through repetition. Meditation interrupts this automatic cycle. Instead of reacting to every passing thought, you begin observing it. You notice fear without immediately obeying it. You notice worry without allowing it to control your emotions. This simple shift changes everything because the observer is always more powerful than the habit. Once you recognize a limiting pattern, you gain the ability to replace it with a better one. That is where lasting transformation begins. Many people expect meditation to erase every negative thought. That expectation often leads to frustration. The purpose is not to force your mind into complete silence. The purpose is to develop a healthier relationship with your thinking. Thoughts will continue appearing because that is what the mind naturally does. The difference is that you no longer become a prisoner of every thought that enters your awareness. Instead, you learn to decide which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones should simply pass by. This ability becomes especially important during difficult moments. Imagine facing unexpected criticism at work. Without mental discipline, one negative comment can occupy your thinking for days. It can influence your confidence and affect your future performance. But when you regularly practice meditation, you become less reactive. You pause before accepting the criticism as part of your identity. You examine it calmly. You keep what is useful and release what is not. This protects your self-image from being shaped by every opinion you encounter. Your self-image deserves careful attention because it quietly influences everything you do. People rarely perform far beyond the picture they hold of themselves. If deep inside you believe you are capable, valuable, and worthy of growth, your actions naturally begin reflecting those beliefs. If you secretly believe you are limited or undeserving, you often hesitate even when opportunities appear. Meditation helps you become aware of this inner picture. Once you see it clearly, you can begin improving it intentionally instead of allowing it to remain unchanged. This is why intentional thinking matters so much. Every day, your mind receives thousands of impressions from conversations, television, social media, advertisements, and personal experiences. Without awareness, these influences gradually shape your beliefs. Meditation gives you an opportunity to become the guardian of your own mind. Instead of accepting every message, you ask yourself whether it supports the person you want to become. If it does not, you simply choose not to feed it with your attention. Mental conditioning works much like physical conditioning. One workout does not create strength, and one meditation session does not completely transform your thinking. Growth happens through consistency. Small daily efforts produce remarkable long-term results. Every time you sit quietly and intentionally direct your attention toward peace, gratitude, confidence, or possibility, you reinforce those patterns within your subconscious. You are teaching your mind what deserves to become familiar. There will be days when meditation feels easy and days when your thoughts seem louder than ever. Do not mistake those busy days for failure. Sometimes the mind simply reveals how much activity has always been there. That awareness is progress. You cannot improve what you refuse to notice. By continuing the practice, you gradually strengthen your ability to remain calm regardless of what is happening around you. As this habit grows, people around you may notice subtle changes before you do. You become more patient during conversations. You respond instead of reacting. You make decisions with greater confidence because your thinking is no longer driven by constant emotional noise. Challenges still appear, but they no longer define your entire day. You begin carrying a quiet certainty that comes from within, rather than depending on outside circumstances. The greatest benefit of meditation is not simply feeling relaxed for a few minutes. Its true value is that it helps you become the conscious author of your own thinking. Instead of allowing old habits to direct your future, you begin planting new mental patterns with purpose. Every calm moment becomes an investment in the person you are becoming. Every intentional thought strengthens a healthier belief. Every repeated belief slowly reshapes your self-image. And once your inner world begins changing in the right direction, you become ready to discover how the pictures you consistently hold in your mind can influence the life you eventually create. Outline 2. Visualize your desired life with clear emotional focus. As your mind becomes quieter and more deliberate, you naturally gain the ability to direct your attention instead of letting it drift wherever habit takes it. That is where visualization begins to play an important role. Visualization is not wishful thinking. It is the intentional practice of creating clear mental pictures of the person you are choosing to become. Before any meaningful change appears in your outer life, it must first become familiar in your inner world. Every achievement you have ever accomplished was imagined in some form before it became real. It may have been a small picture, like imagining yourself driving to a new place before leaving the house. Or it may have been something much bigger, like seeing yourself earning a promotion, starting a business, or building stronger relationships. The mind naturally works with images. Long before you explain something with words, your imagination has already formed a picture. The question is whether those pictures are supporting your future or quietly limiting it. Many people spend their lives visualizing without realizing they are doing it. Unfortunately, they often imagine everything they hope will never happen. They picture failing before an interview. They imagine being rejected before making an important phone call. They see themselves making mistakes before giving a presentation. These images may last only a few moments, but when repeated often enough, they begin influencing emotions and behavior. The body responds to the picture as though it deserves attention, even when it has never happened. Imagine someone preparing for an important meeting days before it begins. They repeatedly picture forgetting what to say. They imagine everyone judging them. Their heart races every time they think about it. By the time the meeting arrives, their nervous system has rehearsed anxiety dozens of times. Their performance reflects the mental practice they have already completed. They did not intend to train themselves for fear, but that is exactly what happened. Now imagine the opposite approach. The same person spends a few quiet minutes each day after meditation, creating a different picture. They see themselves walking into the room with calm confidence. They imagine speaking clearly, listening carefully, and responding thoughtfully. They picture leaving the meeting knowing they gave their best effort. They allow themselves to experience the steady feeling of confidence while holding that image. When the actual meeting arrives, their mind is stepping into something that already feels familiar. This is one reason emotional focus matters so much. A picture without feeling rarely leaves a lasting impression on the subconscious. Emotion gives energy to thought. It tells the subconscious that this experience is meaningful and worth remembering. That is why memories connected with strong emotions remain clear for years. The subconscious pays close attention to whatever carries emotional significance. When you visualize your desired future, do not simply watch yourself from a distance as though you are observing someone else. Step into the experience. Imagine looking through your own eyes. Notice the details, hear the conversations, feel the confidence in your posture. Experience the gratitude that naturally comes from living as the person you are becoming. Let the emotions match the picture. This is not pretending that your goal has already happened. It is preparing your mind to recognize it as possible. There is another important difference between fantasy and purposeful visualization. Fantasy often focuses entirely on receiving rewards. Purposeful visualization includes becoming the kind of person who naturally creates those rewards. Instead of only imagining financial success, picture yourself making disciplined decisions every day. Instead of only seeing a healthier body, imagine yourself choosing nourishing meals, exercising consistently, and respecting your own well-being. Instead of only imagining meaningful relationships, picture yourself becoming a patient listener, an encouraging friend, and someone who communicates honestly. The subconscious responds most effectively when your mental pictures include your own behavior. You are not simply hoping life changes around you. You are conditioning yourself to think and act differently within that life. This shifts your attention from outcomes you cannot completely control to habits you can practice every single day. Think about an athlete preparing for competition. Long before stepping onto the field, they mentally rehearse movements over and over again. They imagine successful performance because the brain learns through repetition, whether the practice is physical or mental. While visualization cannot replace real action, it can strengthen confidence before action begins. It reduces uncertainty because the experience no longer feels completely unfamiliar. The same principle applies in everyday life. Perhaps you want to become someone who speaks with greater confidence. During your quiet moments, imagine introducing yourself comfortably. Picture yourself maintaining eye contact, speaking clearly, and remaining relaxed even if others disagree with you. Over time, these repeated mental rehearsals begin influencing your natural responses. Opportunities that once created hesitation begin feeling more manageable because your subconscious has already practiced them many times. One mistake people often make is visualizing only once in a while, usually when they feel inspired. Mental conditioning works best through regular repetition. Just as reading a single page of a book rarely changes your understanding, creating one powerful mental picture rarely transforms deeply rooted beliefs. The mind learns through consistency. A few focused minutes every day gradually become more influential than one long session, followed by weeks of neglect. It also helps to protect the quality of the images you repeatedly consume throughout the day. Your subconscious does not clearly separate pictures you intentionally create from those you absorb through constant exposure. If your attention is continually filled with negativity, fear, conflict, and comparison, those impressions become part of your mental environment. They quietly influence expectations without asking for permission. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending challenges do not exist. Life will always include uncertainty. Difficult conversations will still happen. Unexpected setbacks will still appear. The difference is that you refuse to let those moments become the dominant pictures living in your imagination. You acknowledge problems without giving them permanent residence in your thinking. One practical habit is to end each day by mentally replaying it in a way that supports growth. If something did not go well, instead of repeatedly reliving the disappointment, imagine yourself handling the situation with greater wisdom. Picture the response you wish you had given. See yourself remaining calm where you became frustrated. Imagine making the confident choice you avoided earlier. This simple exercise teaches your subconscious a new pattern rather than reinforcing the old one. Over time, you may notice something subtle but powerful. Your expectations begin changing. You stop automatically assuming that things will go wrong. You become more willing to take healthy risks because your imagination is no longer dominated by failure. This shift affects countless small decisions that eventually shape your future. You speak up more often. You pursue opportunities that once intimidated you. You recover from setbacks more quickly because your inner picture remains focused on growth instead of defeat. Perhaps the greatest gift of visualization is that it allows your future to influence your present. Most people let yesterday control today's thinking. They carry old disappointments into every new opportunity. Purposeful visualization gently reverses that pattern. It invites you to let the person you are becoming guide the choices you make today. As these mental images grow clearer, they begin strengthening a new standard for how you see yourself. The gap between your current identity and your desired identity slowly becomes smaller. Your decisions become more aligned with the person you have been rehearsing in your mind. Meditation provides the quiet space. Visualization provides the direction. And together they begin shaping an inner environment where lasting change feels increasingly natural, preparing you to explore how your self-image itself can become the foundation for everything you create next. Outline 3. Strengthen your self-image through consistent positive mental rehearsal. The picture you repeatedly hold of yourself eventually becomes the standard by which you live. It quietly influences how you speak, how you make decisions, what opportunities you pursue, and even what you believe you deserve. Most people never consciously choose this picture. It develops over many years through childhood experiences, repeated comments from others, personal successes, disappointments, and countless small moments that seem insignificant at the time. Without realizing it, many people continue living according to an outdated version of themselves long after they have outgrown it. This is why positive mental rehearsal is so valuable. It gives you the opportunity to intentionally replace an old identity with a new one that better reflects your potential. The goal is not to create an unrealistic version of yourself. It is to become familiar with the qualities you genuinely want to develop until they begin feeling natural instead of distant. Think about someone who has always believed they are shy. For years, they avoid speaking first, stay quiet during meetings, and allow others to make important decisions. Eventually, they say, "That's just who I am." But is it really who they are? Or is it simply a role they have rehearsed thousands of times? Every situation becomes another practice session for the same identity. The behavior strengthens the belief, and the belief encourages the same behavior. The cycle continues without anyone questioning it. Now imagine that same person deciding to interrupt the pattern through deliberate mental rehearsal. During quiet moments after meditation, they picture themselves greeting people with ease. They imagine asking thoughtful questions during conversations. They see themselves contributing ideas with confidence instead of waiting for permission. They mentally experience these situations again and again until they stop feeling unfamiliar. At first, nothing may appear different on the outside, but something important is changing beneath the surface. The subconscious is receiving a new set of instructions. The remarkable thing about the mind is that it learns through repeated experience, whether that experience happens physically or mentally. This is why athletes rehearse movements before competition. Musicians mentally practice performances, and skilled professionals prepare for important situations in advance. They understand that repetition builds familiarity. The same principle applies to your identity. Every time you mentally rehearse becoming more patient, disciplined, confident, or focused, you are strengthening pathways that support those qualities. One practical exercise is to identify a single characteristic you genuinely admire. Perhaps it is calmness under pressure. Maybe it is persistence, kindness, courage, or discipline. Rather than hoping that quality somehow appears on its own, spend a few minutes each day mentally rehearsing yourself, expressing it in ordinary situations. Picture yourself remaining composed during a difficult conversation. Imagine choosing discipline when distractions appear. Visualize yourself responding thoughtfully instead of emotionally. These are not imaginary victories meant to replace action. They are preparations that make real action more likely. Notice how this approach shifts your attention away from labels and toward behavior. Instead of repeatedly saying, "I wish I were more confident," you begin practicing confident decisions in your imagination. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you become occupied with who you are training yourself to become. The subconscious responds more effectively to repeated patterns than to occasional wishes. Many people unknowingly rehearse the opposite every day. They replay embarrassing moments over and over. They revisit old failures, uncomfortable conversations, and missed opportunities until those experiences become deeply familiar. Even years later, one memory can instantly influence how they see themselves. They may have learned valuable lessons from those moments, but instead of keeping the lesson, they keep rehearsing the limitation. Mental rehearsal gives you the opportunity to rewrite that habit. This does not mean pretending mistakes never happened. Every experience has something to teach. The difference is that you refuse to let one chapter become the entire story of your identity. You acknowledge what occurred, learn from it, and then begin rehearsing the version of yourself that responds with greater wisdom the next time. Consider someone who once struggled financially. Even after their income improves, they may continue making decisions from a mindset of constant fear because that identity has become deeply familiar. They hesitate to invest in learning, avoid reasonable opportunities, and constantly expect everything to disappear. Their circumstances have changed, but their self-image has not caught up. Mental rehearsal helps close that gap. Instead of repeatedly identifying with past scarcity, they begin imagining themselves making thoughtful financial decisions with confidence and responsibility. They picture themselves handling money wisely, creating value, and remaining calm even when unexpected expenses arise. Little by little, the subconscious begins accepting this healthier identity as the new normal. The same process applies to relationships. If someone has experienced disappointment, they may unconsciously rehearse expecting rejection. Without realizing it, they become guarded before anyone has given them a reason to be. Positive mental rehearsal allows them to practice openness, honest communication, and mutual respect before entering those situations. As their self-image improves, their interactions naturally begin reflecting that inner change. It is also helpful to remember that consistency matters far more than intensity. You do not need hours of mental rehearsal every day. A few focus minutes practiced faithfully often produce greater results than occasional bursts of enthusiasm. Just as water slowly shapes stone through continual flow, repeated impressions gradually reshape the subconscious through steady attention. Your environment can support this process as well. Pay attention to the conversations you have with yourself throughout the day. Every internal statement becomes another rehearsal. If you constantly think, "I always get this wrong," or "people like me never succeed," you are strengthening an identity that works against your goals. Begin replacing those automatic responses with statements that encourage growth. Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," try, "I am learning to handle challenges with greater confidence." The difference may seem small, but repetition gives those words increasing influence over time. Meditation becomes especially useful here because it creates the pause needed to notice your internal dialogue before it becomes automatic. Without that pause, old habits continue operating unnoticed. With it, you gain the freedom to redirect your attention toward thoughts that support the identity you are intentionally building. Another valuable practice is to mentally rehearse ordinary moments, not just major achievements. Picture yourself waking up with purpose, preparing for your day with focus, listening attentively during conversations, completing important tasks without procrastination, and ending the evening with gratitude for your progress. These simple scenes are powerful because life is largely shaped by ordinary days repeated consistently. Extraordinary results often grow out of ordinary habits practiced with intention. As your self-image strengthens, something subtle begins to happen. Decisions become easier because you are no longer asking, "What should I do?" You begin asking, "What would the person I am becoming naturally choose?" That single shift creates remarkable consistency. Healthy choices stop feeling like temporary sacrifices and begin feeling like natural expressions of your identity. People around you may describe these changes as increased confidence, discipline, or maturity. From your perspective, it feels different. You are not forcing yourself to act like someone else. You are gradually becoming more aligned with the image you have been patiently rehearsing. There is less inner conflict because your thoughts, emotions, and actions are moving in the same direction. This transformation does not happen overnight, nor does it require perfection. There will still be moments when old patterns try to return. The important thing is not to rehearse those setbacks as proof that nothing has changed. Instead, view them as opportunities to strengthen the new identity once again. Every conscious response reinforces the person you are choosing to become. With enough repetition, the qualities you once admired from a distance begin feeling like a natural part of your character. Calmness replaces unnecessary worry. Discipline becomes more automatic. Confidence grows quieter and steadier because it is no longer based on temporary success, but on the consistent conditioning of your own mind. From that stronger foundation, you become ready to deepen the process even further by feeding your subconscious with ideas that continually elevate the way you think and the way you live. Outline 4. Reprogram your subconscious by reading empowering ideas repeatedly. Once you begin choosing your thoughts with greater care and deliberately strengthening the image you hold of yourself, another question naturally appears. What ideas are you giving your mind each day? The subconscious cannot build empowering patterns from material it never receives. Just as the body depends on consistent nourishment, the mind depends on consistent instruction. Reading is one of the most practical ways to provide that instruction because it allows you to borrow the thinking of people who have already developed the qualities you admire. Every book carries more than information. It carries a way of thinking. When you read the words of someone who has learned patience, discipline, resilience, or wisdom, you spend time inside their mental framework. You begin seeing familiar situations through a different perspective. A challenge that once seemed overwhelming may begin looking like an opportunity to grow. A setback that once felt permanent may become temporary. The words themselves matter, but the thinking behind those words matters even more. Many people treat reading as entertainment or as something they finished when school ended. They race through chapters, collect facts, and then move on to the next book without allowing any idea to truly influence their lives. Knowledge alone rarely changes behavior. Transformation happens when an idea is revisited so often that it becomes part of the way you naturally think. Imagine planting a seed in dry soil and never watering it again. The seed may contain tremendous potential, but without regular care, nothing develops. An empowering idea works the same way. Reading one inspiring sentence may lift your mood for a few minutes, but repeatedly returning to that idea allows it to take root. Eventually, it begins influencing your decisions without conscious effort. This is why it can be more valuable to deeply study one meaningful book than to quickly finish 20 books you barely remember. Slow reading encourages reflection. It creates space to ask important questions. What does this principle reveal about the way I currently think? Where have I been limiting myself? How can I apply this idea today? These questions move reading beyond information and into personal development. Meditation can make this process even more effective. After reading a few pages filled with constructive ideas, spend several quiet minutes allowing those ideas to settle. Resist the urge to immediately reach for another distraction. Give your mind time to absorb what you have just encountered. During this period of stillness, certain thoughts often become clearer. Connections appear that might have been missed in constant activity. You begin carrying the lesson into your inner dialogue rather than leaving it on the page. Consider someone who reads a chapter about personal responsibility. They close the book and continue through the day as usual. Another person reads the same chapter but then sits quietly for 10 minutes, reflecting on where they have been blaming circumstances instead of improving themselves. The information was identical, but the second person gave the subconscious an opportunity to process and personalize the lesson. That simple pause can make all the difference. Another powerful habit is rereading. Many people avoid it because they believe they already know the material. Yet you are not the same person you were 6 months ago, or even 6 weeks ago. As your awareness grows, familiar passages often reveal entirely new meaning. The words have not changed. Your level of understanding has. Think about watching a favorite movie years after seeing it for the first time. You notice scenes, conversations, and details that escaped your attention before. Reading works in much the same way. A sentence that once seemed ordinary may suddenly become exactly what you need because your current experiences allow you to appreciate it differently. This repeated exposure also strengthens subconscious conditioning. The mind learns through familiarity. Every time you revisit an empowering concept, you reinforce the neural pathways connected to it. Gradually, those ideas become easier to recall during real-life situations. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin responding from principles you have intentionally practiced through reading and reflection. The quality of what you read deserves careful consideration. Your subconscious does not carefully separate useful messages from harmful ones. It simply absorbs repeated impressions. If your reading is consistently filled with negativity, hopelessness, conflict, and cynicism, those patterns quietly influence your expectations. On the other hand, regularly exposing yourself to thoughtful ideas about growth, purpose, character, and possibility gradually shapes a more constructive mental environment. This does not mean avoiding reality or pretending difficult subjects do not exist. There is value in understanding problems. But if every piece of information you consume reinforces fear, frustration, or helplessness, your thinking eventually reflects those themes. Balance becomes essential. Make sure your mind receives enough empowering material to strengthen hope alongside awareness. One practical approach is to create a personal collection of passages that deeply resonate with you. They do not need to be long. A single paragraph that reminds you to remain disciplined, grateful, or courageous can become a powerful daily companion. Read it each morning before beginning your responsibilities. Read it again in the evening before sleep. Allow those words to become familiar until they naturally influence your thinking throughout the day. You may also notice that certain ideas challenge your current beliefs. This is often where the greatest growth occurs. Instead of rejecting an uncomfortable principle because it feels unfamiliar, become curious. Ask yourself whether your resistance comes from careful reasoning or simply from long-established habits. Sometimes the beliefs that have quietly limited you for years begin changing because of one idea you were willing to consider repeatedly. Reading also expands your self-image by introducing examples of what is possible. You discover ordinary individuals who developed extraordinary character through persistence, learning, and consistent effort. Their stories remind you that growth is not reserved for a select few. It is available to anyone willing to condition their thinking and patiently improve their habits. It is important, however, to avoid turning reading into a substitute for living. There is a difference between collecting inspiration and applying it. Each time you finish reading, choose one practical action that reflects the principle you have learned. If the lesson emphasizes patience, practice patience during your next conversation. If it highlights gratitude, intentionally express appreciation to someone before the day ends. These small applications tell the subconscious that the ideas you are reading are meant to become part of your life, not simply part of your memory. As weeks become months, something remarkable begins happening. You start noticing that your internal conversations sound different. Instead of automatically expecting the worst, your mind begins searching for solutions. Instead of criticizing yourself after every mistake, you naturally ask what can be learned. Instead of becoming discouraged by slow progress, you remember the principles you have reinforced through daily study. This quiet shift is not dramatic, yet it is deeply significant. Your subconscious has been receiving consistent instruction from ideas that encourage growth rather than limitation. The change appears gradually because genuine conditioning always does. Just as a tree grows one ring at a time, your thinking develops through countless small impressions accumulated over many days. Eventually, reading becomes more than a habit. It becomes a conversation with your future self. Each page reminds you of the person you are intentionally becoming. Meditation creates the stillness to absorb these lessons. Reflection allows them to settle into your thinking. Repetition gives them lasting influence. Together, they reshape your expectations, strengthen your character, and quietly prepare you to express those inner changes through confident action in every area of your life. Outline 5. Act confidently every day until success becomes natural. The purpose of shaping your inner world is not simply to think differently, it is to live differently. There comes a point when the thoughts you have been carefully cultivating must begin expressing themselves through daily action. This is where real transformation becomes visible. Your subconscious has been receiving new instructions. Your self-image has been expanding. Your mind has been strengthened through quiet reflection and purposeful learning. Now, those changes must find their way into ordinary moments because lasting confidence is built through repeated experience, not through occasional inspiration. Many people wait to feel completely confident before they act. They believe confidence comes first and action follows. In reality, confidence often grows because of action. Every time you make a decision that aligns with the person you are becoming, you provide your subconscious with fresh evidence that your new identity is real. Small victories accumulate. They strengthen belief far more effectively than endless preparation. Think about someone learning to swim. Reading about swimming has value. Watching others swim has value. Visualizing smooth movements has value, but eventually they must enter the water. The first few attempts may feel uncomfortable because the body is adapting to something unfamiliar. With practice, movements that once required conscious effort become natural. Confidence develops through repeated participation, not through waiting until fear disappears. The same principle applies to personal growth. Suppose you have been developing the mindset of someone who communicates clearly. The opportunity arrives to share an idea during a meeting. Your old habits encourage silence. Your new conditioning encourages contribution. At that moment, confidence is not measured by the absence of nervousness. It is measured by your willingness to act according to your chosen identity despite temporary discomfort. Every time you make that choice, you reinforce an important message within your subconscious. You are no longer living according to outdated expectations. You are proving through action that a different version of yourself is becoming normal. This is how success gradually becomes part of your everyday experience, rather than an occasional exception. Meditation continues serving an important purpose during this stage. Instead of using it only to observe your thoughts, use it to prepare for the day ahead. Before responsibilities begin, quietly consider the situations you are likely to face. Picture yourself responding with patience when pressure increases. See yourself remaining focused when distractions appear. Imagine making thoughtful decisions instead of rushed ones. These moments of preparation help create emotional stability before challenges arrive. Throughout the day, remember that confidence is often expressed in remarkably simple ways. It appears when you keep a promise to yourself even though no one is watching. It appears when you finish an important task instead of postponing it again. It appears when you ask a thoughtful question because you genuinely want to learn. It appears when you admit a mistake without allowing it to define your worth. These actions may seem ordinary, but repeated consistently, they reshape your character. There is a tendency to believe that extraordinary success requires extraordinary moments. Yet most meaningful achievements are built from ordinary choices made repeatedly. One healthy conversation strengthens a relationship. One focused hour advances an important project. One disciplined decision improves your habits. One act of courage opens a new opportunity. Each action may appear small, but together they create a completely different life. It is also important to recognize that setbacks are part of every meaningful journey. Acting confidently does not guarantee immediate success. Sometimes your ideas will be rejected. Sometimes plans will fail. Sometimes progress will feel slower than expected. These moments do not erase the work you have done. They simply provide another opportunity to strengthen the mindset you have been developing. Imagine planting a garden. Some days bring sunshine, other days bring rain. Occasionally storms arrive. A wise gardener does not abandon the garden because of difficult weather. They continue caring for it because they understand that growth depends on consistent attention over time. Your mind deserves the same patience. Continue tending it, especially when circumstances become challenging. One practical habit is to measure your days by faithfulness rather than perfection. At the end of each evening, ask yourself simple questions. Did I make choices that reflected the person I am becoming? Did I respond thoughtfully instead of automatically? Did I honor my values even when it required effort? These questions keep your attention on progress rather than temporary results. Another helpful practice is to celebrate evidence of growth that others may never notice. Perhaps you remain calm during a conversation that once would have frustrated you. Maybe you completed an important task without giving in to procrastination. Perhaps you chose encouragement instead of self-criticism after making a mistake. These moments deserve recognition because they represent genuine changes in your conditioning. As your confidence deepens, avoid comparing your progress with someone else's journey. Comparison quietly shifts your attention away from your own development. Every individual begins from different experiences, faces different challenges, and grows at a different pace. The only meaningful comparison is between who you were yesterday and who you are choosing to become today. You will also discover that authentic confidence becomes quieter over time. It no longer depends on proving your worth or seeking constant approval. Instead, it expresses itself through steady consistency. You become dependable because your actions are guided by principles rather than changing emotions. You stop needing perfect conditions before taking meaningful steps. You trust the habits you have patiently developed. People around you may begin responding differently as well. They notice your reliability. They sense your calmness during uncertainty. They appreciate your willingness to listen before speaking. They see someone who approaches challenges with purpose instead of panic. While external recognition can be encouraging, remember that the deepest reward is the relationship you have built with yourself. You know that your actions are becoming increasingly aligned with your values. There will still be mornings when motivation feels low. That is perfectly normal. Motivation rises and falls. Conditioning endures. This is why your daily practices matter so much. Meditation centers your attention. Reading renews your perspective. Mental rehearsal strengthens your identity. Purposeful action confirms that identity. Together, these habits create a rhythm that continues even when emotions fluctuate. Over time, the behaviors that once required deliberate effort become automatic. Discipline no longer feels like constant struggle. Constructive thinking becomes more natural than unnecessary worry. Opportunities are approached with curiosity instead of hesitation. You recover from disappointment more quickly because your self-worth is no longer tied to a single outcome. Your subconscious has accepted a healthier standard for how you think, choose, and respond. Success then begins to take on a different meaning. It is no longer defined only by achievements, possessions, or recognition. It becomes the natural expression of a mind that has been carefully trained, a character strengthened through daily practice, and a self-image rooted in possibility rather than limitation. External accomplishments may follow, but they are no longer the foundation of your confidence. They are simply the visible results of invisible habits developed with patience and intention. As each day passes, continue honoring these practices with quiet consistency. Protect the quality of your thoughts. Feed your mind with ideas that elevate your perspective. Rehearse the qualities you wish to express. Take meaningful action even when progress seems small. Trust that every deliberate choice is shaping the person you are becoming. In time, what once felt difficult will become familiar. What once seemed impossible will become achievable, and the life you envisioned through disciplined mental conditioning will increasingly reflect the person you have patiently trained yourself to be.